Welcome to the Under the Hat podcast, the show where we talk about everything and anything that is top of mind in education. The goal is to provide meaningful conversation to what is currently happening in our classrooms, stories, pains, moments of success. We want to hear it all. Friends, welcome back to Under the Hat. As some of you kind of gathered online, I took a week off, kind of did some work travel. I was in the state of Texas doing some work out there. And then I caught a conference on the way back, did some professional development, professional learning, as we like to call it now, in the Monterey area of California. If you are familiar with that area, Salinas, Monterey. Had an awesome time. And anytime that I traveling for work purposes or for pleasure, it's always, I don't know, to me, it's like a good reset, right? Kind of reflect on what we're doing and perhaps what we're not doing in like the day-to-day in our classrooms. For me, in the adult ed and university classrooms, and also like how I'm, supporting teachers globally at the company that I work at now. So it's good to be back. We have 3 episodes lined up this week. And that seems to be the norm here at Under the Hat. Like, we're getting bookings, we're getting people that want to come on and talk. And I'm super thankful and grateful for that. And today's super exciting because I have a guest here that we were talking about earlier. It was like, we kind of meet each other online, right? I see him, he sees me, and kind of the work that we're both doing. But this is the first time that we've connected face to face like this. And we're joined by Alex Isaacs, who, if you don't know, or if you don't follow him on X or any of the other platforms, you really should. Because it's really clear that we're talking with somebody that is super passionate about teaching, about edtech, about passion that exists within the ecosystem of education. So I am super thrilled to introduce and have Mr. Alex Isaacs here with us. Alex, how are you, sir?
Steve, I'm doing great. What a pleasure to connect and be a part of your podcast, 5th episode. So very excited to be here. I'm glad that you talked about passion. I think that that's maybe almost coming on too much with the passion that I have for edtech. Some of my friends might say that a little bit. But couldn't be more happy to be here and be able to discuss some ed tech with you tonight in many different areas and just really start building that connection between us moving ahead.
Yeah, and so going into the show, as we're still in the early stages of its existence, that was almost like the main motivator, right? Is like, how do we make new friends, more friends, and really that idea of stronger together. So I really appreciate you being here, Alex. So for those that maybe don't know you or have, follow you, but really haven't seen a lot of your work, and what, if you can just like lay out your context, where you came from, and where you're headed, because I do know that you made a recent transition.
Yeah, I mean, I originally come from the business world, thought I was going to follow in my father's footsteps, a brilliant bond trader on Wall Street. And those were the shoes I thought I was going to fill. Some things happened. Mom got sick, convinced me to go into education. I started really just being interested in elementary, got my certification in middle school mathematics, became very passionate about that. And most recently have been a middle school math teacher between grades 6th and 8th. But most recently, just trying to stay engaged, really promote the thing that I'm most passionate about with it, which is educational technology. Finally getting that opportunity to become an educational technology coach at the Long Branch Public School District, where I get to work with the partner in my real life. And she's also my partner at work. So Lois Alston, another fabulous ed tech who, working towards marrying the love of my life and also having her in the district as my work partner. I pinch myself some days going, I can't believe this is where I'm at this point in my career.
What a story right there. That is amazing, right? You get to have that bond, that connection. And so like, I would imagine that's just an incredible dynamic.
It is because, it's great to be in a relationship with somebody who's passionate about what I am as well. And it's great to be able to walk across, I don't know, a 200, 300 yards gap between our two schools and go see her or eat lunch, have walks. And I feel like, I kind of witnessed her perspective on, the person who was before me kind of left last October, the October before last. So I guess October of 2022. So she kind of ran the show herself all the way through May until I came on. So my goal really since I came into working with her was I want to create systems that alleviate it for both of us, allow us to both to be most successful and really take off of her plate considering how much she had to deal with for that extended period of time. So legitimately, I think about my math career where there were days where I felt kind of negative about myself as a result of not, meeting kids where they were or having them feel like they were engaged in math despite my best efforts, to now be able to work with my partner, pop into classrooms of all grade levels and get kids excited by passing out some swag or, just having some laughs with her in a classroom. It's some of the most memorable moments of my teaching career, and it's an experience that I'm very thankful for and can't believe that the details kind of work this way out where I get to be with her and just share experiences and build something in the district.
Yeah. And sometimes where the cards fall, that's how they fall. Right. And I'm so thrilled for you that they've kind of landed in the places and in the way that they have. So because I have to ask you, because like me myself now, I've left the high school classroom. I've been out of that space for about almost 2 years now. But now working with student teachers and working in a credential program, I see this more and more where teaching is not their first career, right? And you kind of alluded to that earlier, where you said you came from the business world. So when you come from that world into education, and I did the opposite, right? I went from always knowing education to the business world. What drove you to that transition? Was it something natural? Was it something, you kind of spoke to that earlier, but like what, in terms of what the work is, or perhaps what the work is not, what about it drove you to that transition?
Well, I always felt I did well with kids. I started off teaching kids golf. That's one of my other passions, much less than what it used to be. I wish I could still play the way I was back in the day when I was a young person. But I worked well with them in that way. I had, done a lot of, students with disabilities, doing volunteer work with them, playing basketball, playing baseball with them, acting as like a mentor, always just really enjoying working with kids. And my high school at the time, Christian Brothers Academy, gave me that opportunity to work with kids. So I kind of had that overall in the back of my mind. Hey, I think I do a pretty good job of explaining how to swing a golf club and not hurt anybody. Maybe I could do this in another sense. I was always good at math. So I just kind of felt, well, what better profession to make a difference than to, shape young minds, be a positive male role model for them in their lives, and make them know that they have somebody who cares about them. I mean, for me, I was always taking time out of my day to check in on kids, making sure that they were okay, providing mote messages to them in the hybrid and remote learning days so that they heard my voice instead of just seeing words on a page. So I'm very passionate about kids who might be in a time of need, who either, whether it be academically, emotionally, otherwise. My childhood, while it was very affluent once I kind of grew up, I still feel like there were some things that I could have really used from my parents and and my teachers especially. And I feel like I took on the role of, well, what were the aspects that I didn't feel when I was a kid as a teacher or a kid to my parents? And I've just tried to become that compassionate, that, landing space for a kid where if they are going through something, yes, I have math to get through, or I have an ed tech lesson, but I will listen to you. I will try to commiserate with you, give you my own experiences, and do my best to meet you where you are and try to give you some perspective. So it's really just about being passionate about working with young kids. And I will say some of the nicest days that I have now are when I go into a classroom. I do miss the day-to-day camaraderie with my kids, the conversations, taking interest in their lives and their extracurriculars. Now, I don't miss a lot of other aspects of being in the classroom. I'll tell you that much, as far as the grading and the protocols and sometimes discipline that might not match what you believe, or restorative justice or many other things. But I know that the luxury of having that ability to go in and pop into classrooms, make an impact on kids. I had a kid give me a hug the other day. I saw them in 2 weeks. It was really nice. It was nice to just know that they remembered me a little bit, even though it's kind of been sporadic. So having that connection with kids, making that impact on kids and letting them know that they have an adult in their life that they can rely upon. That's kind of the cornerstone of my teaching, and also trying to keep it fun and engaging.
All of that resonates with me so much. And so first, let me say that I want to echo what you said in the sense of like, giving back more than what you got. And to me, that was like the cornerstone of, my whole mentality of teaching is like, I came from like I struggled, right? Academically and in a lot of other different ways as a child. So, and as a student, so like this idea of giving back, right? But then the other thing that you said is like, I talk about quite often, probably too much, but is like, we go into it for the students, and individuals like ourselves, we end up getting pulled out in some way. And so we both got pulled out from different places, and there's two different, many different reasons as why that happens. And I am lucky that I get to go onto school sites. Today, I was observing a student teacher at the school I taught at. And that was like super special. Like teachers are like, oh, it's Steve's in the building. And that was a lot of fun. And so I am, really thrilled for you and really pleased. Like when I hear you say like, oh, when I'm going back into the classroom and I see kids and like that, you're right. There are things I don't miss. And someone asked me that today while I was on site, and I was like, Steve, do you miss this? I'm like, yes and no, all in the same time. But it's really the students, right? And those connections. But now we make a different impact, I feel, because we have a larger audience. Like we're indirectly, hopefully impacting more students instead of like our 100 or 100 students that we would normally be teaching. So like I guess my question is like, so your other transition is as a coach now, instructional coach. What has that transition been like? And have you, maybe things of success, or maybe things that you see like perhaps problematic that need, attention? Just curious because I never made that transition into that space. So I'm curious, from classroom to coach, what have you experienced so far?
Well, it's been a great experience from the lens of I now get to do what I was very passionate about math and teaching math and all of the things that went with that. I'm more passionate about integrating tech. So when I fused the two of those together in my math class, that was when I was singing and doing the best. I view being a tech coach as you have your students who are your teachers. How are you going to reach them? How are you going to build relationships? I like to think that I've done a good job so far of trying to be present, trying to be timely. I put my resources up against anybody's. I'm very proud of those, my Wakelet resource hubs that I share so freely, both on socials and with my teachers, both Lois and I collaborating on them. So I'm very proud of the systems that we've kind of put into place, where in every resource hub, you've got a Google form to contact us, whether it be to get a license to a platform, whether it be to ask a question, schedule a time for us to come in. We didn't really have a system set up that would allow it to be that easy without having teachers having to visit our website or otherwise. So very happy with the way systems have gone, very pleased with the resource hubs as far as sharing that and really creating a space. We have a Canvas site that we created that we're going to be releasing one of these days and kind of sharing with the world as well. But there are other aspects where I feel like I've got to see the long game, but I'm impatient apparently. So I'm just like, well, what am I not doing to build that buy-in to a new degree? We have monthly check-ins with our different platform reps, and I'm looking at usage reports. And, just like I took my students' exam grades personally back in the day, I'm taking a usage report that shows a dip in January as compared to last year. I'm taking that on me. What did I not do? Is there fatigue on this platform? Is it becoming a challenge? Are there login issues? So I feel like I'll have a little bit of a better sense once I actually have a year under my belt. But at this point, I think that as much of an impact as I could have, I'm proud of it so far, but there's still a ways to go. And to me, I have to keep growing. I have to keep feeling like I'm reaching more people or having a good impact or creating stuff that's meaningful. I love to create and share. You go to my X page, you're going to see a lot of different resources, a lot of stuff. But what are you doing with it? We talk about what's top of mind in this podcast, Steve. And I think about what's preventing people from looking at it, liking it. Maybe about 1% of people out there liking it when they post it, you put your heart and soul into it. What's that next step to get that level of buy-in? And that's kind of what I'm now taking into my own practice, where I'm saying, how do I build buy-in? So, we've just been trying to immerse teachers in professional learning opportunities as much as possible, but also keeping in mind that sometimes it's a challenge to have professional learning opportunities scheduled for yourself. So there's been a lot of different kind of things that we've had to overcome. And then there's been other aspects that I think are on the good path and kind of on their way. But for me, until I just see that level of growth that I would want for my students, for my now school community, district community, it's tough for me to kind of rest on my laurels and feel the best about things. So I would just say, proud of where we're at, still room to grow. That's the best I could kind of summarize as far as where I'm at in the kind of successes and few challenges that I've experienced along the way as well.
Yeah. And so like a lot of what you're experiencing is a lot of what I see working at a company that like Cami, of largely what I do. And for those that have been listening, I don't talk a whole lot about my company. Try to keep this very agnostic, very open space for a lot of different conversation. But like a lot of what I do is like, trying to support these districts, support these coaches like yourself, teachers, in the sense of like, okay, cool, here's the tool, but it's more than just the tool. It's the pedagogy, it's the choices that we make as teachers. And sometimes it is challenging to get that buy-in of like, yes, I want to go and actively learn about this thing that maybe I've not been exposed to before. So the challenges that I think, Alex, that you and I both have are, how do we get that buy-in, and how do we get really focus in on the value of what it is that we offer and that we have. So yeah, all of that really resonates with me. And so this might be a good time to really go into the meat of every episode. And the meat always is, and this might be like maybe a better title for the show is like the one question show, because this is really the one question that we really tear apart here. And I'll be honest, Alex, like when I first saw you come through, you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have Alex on the show. I was like, what are we gonna talk about? Because we can talk about so much. And that's why this episode is Unpacking the Hat with Alex, because there's so much we can do here between the two of us. But with what you're seeing, and maybe in your current role or your previous role, being in the trenches of the classroom, what have you seen? Like, what is under the hat or top of mind in education right now? And it doesn't have to be one thing. It could be a couple different things. It doesn't have to be positive, negative. It could be nuanced, right? So what is that right now? What is speaking to you? Possibly, what is keeping you up at night in terms of what's happening in education?
Well, the big thing for me is I've come in contact with so many different coaches, so many different people who share so knowledgeably on some of the platforms I'm most passionate about. And I think that a common thread is the support from up top, that support from administrators, how that impacts a coach's ability to be more successful, in my mind. And having that level of support, not just from a coaching perspective, but from a teaching perspective. I know as well as you do, we have teachers fleeing the profession, often going into sales, which is kind of similar to teaching because you're selling a lesson, as far as I'm concerned, trying to engage kids. And your idea of, hey, you need to know this for the real world. So I just feel like, to me, it's how do we as teachers, as coaches, how do we get that trickle down effect from up top? How do we make that administrative support more consistent? Because, for me as a tech coach, I think that with some teachers, there's a predisposition to feeling like, I don't want to do this, or this is more than what I'm wanting to do. But when it comes from a coach as compared to coming from maybe a person, up top in the district, I think it has that impact of, okay, at the very least, I need to read this email more carefully. I need to complete this Google Form survey, something like that. So to me, it's really the support that comes from up top. How can we make that a little bit more consistent within our schools? And then for me, especially as a tech coach, how can I support teachers to make them want to really delve into the profession and want to stick around and take off of their plate? What tools can I use that will make the curriculum more robust and allow them to be more successful in the classroom? So that was a heck of a question/answer. But those are the two things for me that, especially during my teaching career, I had administrators that were very supportive. I had the exact opposite. The level of comfortability that would build and the level of support that I had were very much meaningful to me and very much like closely together. Like I felt from Todd, I had a certain feeling when I walked through the door. I didn't have it. Oh my gosh, was it a dreadful day? So I feel like those, to me, keeping good teachers in the profession, why are we losing them to often sales jobs in ed tech? What can we do to keep them in the profession and make them feel supportive? That's what's top of my mind in education, keeping me up occasionally at night.
Yeah. And perhaps I'm not the best example of this. And I'm not in a sales job. That's not a good way to put my role. But I am seeing, especially in platforms like LinkedIn, right, where it's really transparent that there are a lot of people out there that are like, and it almost seems like, I hate to put it this way, but like some of them are like, I need to get out now. Like,
Yeah.
not to say like they're desperate or anything, but like, and it depends on where you are, right? It depends on what state you're from and your district and everything else that may be like surrounding you. But that is a problem. And so, yeah, kind of like my friend Sophie is in the chat here, like these transitioning teachers, like they're actively, purposefully transitioning. Now, when I left the classroom, it wasn't purposeful. I like stumbled upon it and be like, oh, I'll go try this new thing. Right. But no, they're actively seeking out ways to leave the profession. And you're right. Cause even like towards the end for me, and while I never really complained too much about my district and the things that are being asked of me, it did feel like semester after semester, week after week, it was always, oh, here's this other thing that's on our plates, right? And sometimes it was, legitimate, while other times it was like, wow, like how am I going to fit this new thing in my day? So what are, I guess maybe start like instructionally, right? Like what are ways to like give teachers back their time? Like, are you seeing any like solutions as to like, hey, you could do this, or this, to really gain back that time, but still be a really good teacher and still be a really good parent or family person? Because that's also another factor as well.
I mean, first of all, I didn't realize earlier. I shout out to Level Up with Sophie. I mean, goodness gracious, I missed her at Visti this year. So shout out to Sophie. Hope you're doing well. Great seeing you shine at all of your different conferences. Keep up the great work. Hope to see you at ISTE this year. But really for me, I've just really tried, along with Lois, to map out resource hubs that allow anybody who's from that, kind of that lack of competency with a tool, you're just starting off. And then as you kind of scroll down a little bit more, those extension type of ideas, for me, it's always about providing my perspective as far as my experience with these tools in the classroom. And, I could get into the AI stuff right now. I don't know. I'm feeling a little bored with the AI stuff. I don't know if I'm feeling on there, but, in my school district, the policy is kind of back and forth. We use Grammarly AI at the moment. There are so many different platforms out right now that are incorporating AI. I feel like only a few of them are doing it meaningfully. Those are the ones that I'm kind of repping, so to speak. But for me, it's really about trying to convince teachers that if you learn these tools, it's going to take off of your plate. And for me, it's always about, again, providing that perspective. Because to me, if I can tell you, hey, this tool engaged my kids, and I'm coming from the perspective of an 8th grade math teacher with a very similar demographic of a Title I school district where I've got students below the poverty line, struggling, trauma, emotional needs. If a seesaw or a quiz or whatever platform I was using, I've kind of tried to bring that over to Long Branch along with Lois to say, this worked in an environment that could be a challenge at times. Those things that were being added on, the engagement issues, possibly the self-regulation factors that might be going on with some of our kids, for whatever reason, mostly because often they want the attention, they want that person to be talking to them. I want to show them that this tool is going to alleviate those, having you have a more harmonious classroom environment that's engaging and impactful to students. Because, I was a math teacher specifically in 8th grade for 3 years. I made some really great lessons that were tech integrated and all of this other stuff, agonizing over them for hours. If you're not engaging the kids with your delivery and your materials and the activities, you have no chance, because they're going to tune you out. And even just to maintain that level of attention for a brief amount of time is a challenge. So I'm always kind of looking at it from a lens of, well, how did I engage my student less than engaged for the most part? And that's where I go into my delivery. And I try to bring that to the teachers in my district now. I'm always passionate. I'm always engaged. I'm always excited to be in the classroom. I'm always talking back about my practice and, I remember this moment with this game, because to me, those were the things that were meaningful. And it was when I incorporated tech and made those connections with others that now I'm trying to bring that to my teachers, where I always tell them, it's very similar to what our man Fonz Mendoza says. I'm just trying to give you a little bit of seasoning on top of what you're already doing great. For me, it's about what can I do to make what you're already doing great even better, where what you do on the front end is going to pay off so much more on the back end. And for me, it's really just about picking out tools that are manageable for teachers and showing them what's the most impact, what's the biggest bang for your buck, so to speak, within those platforms. But just trying to share with them my own personal experiences, how it impacted me, my time, saving time, or making a bigger impact and making connections. That's what I'm now trying to impart upon a group of adults from multiple different competencies and otherwise. So trying to keep that in mind, keep it differentiated for them as much as I can on my end, and then always getting that feedback at the end to try to better my practice.
Yeah. And so with that too, and so Alex, before we jumped on, before we went live, I should say, we also had this kind of like brief chat about, as in professionals like ourselves that are offering up that professional development or professional learning, what that should look like, right? And how oftentimes it does look a lot different compared to like what's being asked of teachers with their students. So like with their students, we talk a lot about student-centeredness approaches, cooperative learning, personalized learning, differentiation. Like we talk about all these things, but I don't know about you, Alex, but like when, and I'm sure you're rocking it right now with this, but like I remember in my own district and sometimes like faculty meetings and stuff like that, like what was expected of me to teach my students was not what I was getting on the professional development side of things. Is that something that you're also seeing, or is that something still going on, right? In with our teachers, maybe across the country, maybe globally? Because to me, that was always an issue too, of just stand and deliver. You're going to listen to us for like 60 minutes and not giving like the teachers like that same differentiation that is expected with their students, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And I can say that from a teaching perspective, outside of going to conferences and seeing amazing speakers, now that I've kind of reached some level of being in the ed tech game, outside of those, purely speaking, from when I was in a classroom having to go to those PD days, I can count on maybe 2 fingers the amount of ones that had an impact on me where I still remember them. And one of them was just a self-care where they did such a good job that I almost fell asleep, not in a bad way. They made me so relaxed that I was like, okay, these people are actually very good at what they do. The amount of platforms that I sat through that were district mandated that I didn't feel were bringing the level of engagement as platforms that I knew about, that was the norm. And when I would receive certificates and I'd be like, for sitting there and watching a person where I didn't even have the chance to be in an interactive chat, I had to get a moderated question pushed out with regard to this. It was really infuriating because it was those instances where I could have been doing something in my classroom or prepping for my next day. And my goodness, from the perspective now as a person who's going in front of people, do I always hope that, oh my gosh, that they never feel that way on their way out of a training with me. I'm trying to make it where people are working on the platform throughout. They have examples. They have me talking to them. They have videos of me walking through it. So, I said I was lucky enough to do a great job on my first observation this year, and it was my bread and butter. It was an 8th grade PLC, and I did a lesson, and it was just such great feedback, and it went well. And I had them actually using the platform. They were on there, they were experimenting, and I said to them, I go, hey, if you tune out a little bit while I'm talking and going on with my Jersey and New York accent, I said, that's okay. I've got a full resource hub for you here, ready to go, where if you want to rewatch, I'm big with Loom as far as being able to see the analytics and everything else. So I just kind of have made it where, and it's really an extension of my teaching. Oh my gosh. Every single year I was coming up with new ways to not give kids an excuse to not use my math resources. So first year I make it, it's very UDL, it's ready to go, it's great. Okay, well, you've got 50% or more as bilingual learners. What are you going to do about that? Okay, I'm going to translate everything. I'm going to offer, I'm going to make a whole new homeschool connection. I'm going to do a newsletter and all of that stuff. So it got to the point where I was telling my kids, guys, if you don't do your stuff, it's as a result of purely plugging your ears and closing your eyes and going, I'm not going to do this work. I did everything I could. And now that is what I'm bringing to the table here. So for me, at this point, I'm all about hubs. I don't know what it is. Back in the day, it was Google Slides, virtual classrooms for my kids that were translated and interactive. And I still look back on those with a lot of pride. And now it's just really saying to myself, I've got to reach these teachers, from novice ones who are worried about, oh gosh, did I follow protocol correctly? Am I doing a good job? Am I looking at a PDP plan? All of these different worries that I experienced when I jumped from district to district a couple times, to my friends who have done it a certain way. I'm good. I got my stuff. This is another tool. I'm not interested. I've got to try to find a way, along with Lois, to meet them where they are, get them to that competency stage where A, they want to use it, B, before that, they see the benefit of it, and C, that they feel confident using it. So for me, it is now building resources, offering those professional learning opportunities so that they don't have to go looking anywhere, making it as accessible as possible. That has always been my word: accessibility and inclusivity. I want everybody to feel like they have a starting point. They have extension ideas so that my high flyers and my very new people, they can all try, use, and explore. So that's, it was ingrained in me so much that I said, I'm not going to be the reason. I will not be the reason that my kids do not get this math material. They will have everything needed in order to get by in a hybrid, remote, asynchronous, whatever word you want to call it. They will have everything they need to succeed. I am now trying to bring that with my partner to this school district, saying, I've given you every opportunity. You have the opportunity to schedule a time with me in a form that's on every resource hub. I want to be there. It's not a judging thing. I think it kind of gets caught up. I'm technically on the leadership team in my district. I wonder if people kind of view me in that lens, even though I'm the furthest of any type of supervisor, because I am still that teacher who recently left the classroom. So I feel like I'm ranting on a bit, but definitely just trying to make it where all skill levels are recognized And for goodness gracious, anybody watching who's a novice presenter on a tech tool, get the people in there within the first 7 to 10 minutes. That's even pushing it. Get them on the platform, have them take away an example that they can use right in their class. That's what I'm really keeping in mind to try to bring it to my teachers in the district.
Oof. Just all of that. We need more of that across districts, across state lines, right? Like, and what I often find, I'll jump into a webinar or, a session, a couple hundred teachers, or just 2 teachers, right? It's so fascinating to me. We're like, they're all in different comfort zones of the technology, different grade levels, different subjects. So it is a lot more challenging than like, I have these 40 sophomores. We all have to learn world history and they can't go away. They're by law, they have to be in that room. Right. And so there is some differentiation that has to go in that space for sure. But I love how you're using this hub protocol. And so Sophie's getting all the love tonight. This hub protocol for how you can differentiate instruction for our teachers. Because if you're a teacher, because here's the thing, I'll kind of go on the opposite side of it, is what if you're somebody that, like me as a teacher, I nerded out on all this stuff. Like when I went to like a PD on whatever tech tool it was, I would be like, the first 30 minutes of it, I'm like, oh, yeah, I know this already. Right. And then like you lose that value, you lose that buy-in. But the teacher right next to me, that individual probably needed that. Right. Yeah. So building these hubs, building the relevancy too, because you want to talk about hubs, and because what you're talking about is like building out real examples of like, hey, this is what your curriculum looks like in this tool or alongside this tool. And that's what teachers want. What teachers don't want is like, to get talked to about how great a tool is. They don't want to hear how great a tool is. They want to see how great it is. Like they want to see it in action and like, what's the value? Like you're right, within the 7 minutes, like if you can't do it within the first 7 minutes, like don't even bother, right? Don't even bother. And so giving that choice and allowing them to explore. And like what Sophie just said, prove it. Like you want to talk about like the most hardcore skeptics in the world, that'd be teachers. Like they're skeptical of everything because they see it all, right? And so I love the idea of like just proving it out of the gate. So I have to ask you. So like when you're looking at building these hubs, is it something that I'm kind of just thinking about this? Like if there's an instructional coach listening now, they're like, "Ooh, that sounds like a really good idea." Can you speak to like maybe time consumption, how you build it out, how you like, is it a team effort in the Isaacs household to help build that out? Like, I'm just curious, like, because if I were listening to this and I was in your role, I'd be like, okay, cool. What strategies could be used to make all this happen?
Well, for me, it's always been about keeping it almost like UDL, always UDL centric for me, especially with my students back in the day as a middle school math teacher. But the build now is really just about taking all of the different things that these platforms share and combining it into one space in a very logical progression that also offers tangible real world ideas on how to integrate it, sometimes how to app smash it. But more than anything, and yes, it is a group deal, although I might primp and preen over stuff a little bit more. Sophie, it is a Wakelet collection. That's my main mode of collecting everything. I'm all over Wakelet as far as that goes, but it allows me to integrate YouTube videos in, YouTube playlists. It allows Looms to be brought right in and integrated. I like that platform because it integrates with pretty much every other one, where if I'm doing one on Edpuzzle or even Kami, I can link each of these and have teachers not have to leave the space to see how it can be used. And, I was talking to Lois about this earlier today. The main reason that I'm currently under a bit of a dilemma right now, Steve, I've got I'm kind of weird to say this. I've got like over 150 certifications right now that were in a collection. And I am now trying to have to figure out how to not make this look so overwhelming as part of my digital portfolio that I've become so proud of and ensconced in. So I'm like thinking about like, just how do I always want to be able to be certified in so much, because I always come to a teacher saying, what do you want to do? What are you looking to do with your kids? So when I then build a hub based on that, I say, what are some creative ways of using this that are impactful, that kids are going to find engaging? That's always the lens that I'm viewing it from. And Lois and I bounce ideas off of each other. We will reach out to platforms. We will do challenges on these hubs as far as giving away swag. If teachers, snap a picture of their kids doing it or submit some student work. So we're just really trying to, provide guidance to our new friends who are just starting to kind of dip their foot into the water and get to learn. We're then providing like some professional learning opportunities for them to kind of see what, if they would want to become certified, learn more. And also for our friends who are good at a platform, already ready to get that cert. Well, now you got it linked right there in front of you. You're ready to go. So providing a one-stop shop, it's always been my goal. You don't have to go anywhere. It's all here. Building from an introductory playlist or what is this tool, providing our own little blurb as far as what we feel the tool will benefit you in, letting you know if it's free or not. You're just giving you a full scope in as organized and what I always hope for is as visually appealing a collection as possible. I'm always trying to offer that to teachers so that all competencies, all skill levels can take one thing and integrate it into their classroom practice. So just building for all skill levels and finding a way to set it up that is organized and not overwhelming. I'll end on this. Wakelet being my place to kind of house all of my resources. Both Lois and I were big into the columns layout. We felt it was overwhelming teachers. We switched to just a straight up stream, straight down, and we feel like it's gotten a lot better buy-in. So, just really trying to build a space that is accessible, has extension activities, and tangible ways to have impactful moments with these tools in the classroom. And I think that if you can do that, along with nurturing teachers through some meaningful PD sessions that are engaging where they get a chance to experience the tool, I think you have a much better chance of reaching them and kind of getting involved and getting into their classroom. So that's always my goal. And every single one that Lois and I post or share it with the world, just couldn't be more proud of it. That's the stuff that I'm most passionate about, because I want everybody to be, able to see what we kind of see in it, what the value is. And that's what I kind of do my best along with Lois as well.
Yeah, love that. And I just really appreciate your UDL infusion, if I can put it that way, within this adult learning space, because it's something that's needed. I would imagine like in a platform like Wakelet, you're able to do that quite comfortably, right? Like they representation, right? How it's engaging. Teachers can probably view, but read, but manipulate all in the same environment. And so, yeah, so I just applaud you, Alex, for all the work that you're doing. I have been a big fan of yours for quite some time. With, what you're doing on social media alone is quite powerful. And I know that, Alex, you have your handle right there, but
yes,
you need it big, Mr.
We'll see. Even though
Isaac's
out of the
Math.
math classroom since May, I'm still Mr. Isaac's Math. My email might say Isaac's EdTech, but I do look back on those days in the math classroom, and oh boy, do I have some memories in the great. But then there are other ones where I'm like, I missed, and those are the ones that still kind of keep me up every now and again. But I know that I close my teaching career as far as that phase, just giving my best to my kids every day. And I do miss the everyday, but being a tech coach in this situation, being able to have connections and have a discussion like this with you on a random Tuesday night, as compared to having to be planning so copiously for a math lesson and just, go into some classrooms tomorrow. It's just such a joy. And it was a real pleasure to be able to share a little bit of my perspective from just recently coming out of the classroom to becoming a tech coach. So I always appreciated you, Steve. You were always very kind to me and always very helpful with everything. And I had a lot of fun. I felt it went really quick, and who knows, down the road, maybe a second version of this.
Yeah, and would love to, because I know that you're it feels like you're really new, like it's all this feels really fresh. Would love to do a check-in in a year, maybe two. Just spending more time, because you know how that goes. The longer you do it, the more you flex and you pivot. And so really love that. Thank you again, Alex, for everybody like Sophie that are up in the chat live, or if you're catching this anytime in the future. Really appreciate all of you. And so I've just been getting all this love, DMs, social media stuff of like, hey, Steve, I'm catching the show, meeting new people, meeting new authors and influencers, stuff of that nature, or just teachers as well. If you want more, please, if you go to underhatpod.com, that is where you find all the business, social media links, the episodes, any episode you can catch. Right now, at the moment, I have it up in Spotify, Apple, and Amazon. So those are the locations. Alex, I'll drop all of your magic in the show notes for people to catch, watch, view, any way they want to absorb the Alex magic. Going back to UDL, they will have access to all of that. And thank you once again. We have 2 more episodes, so you'll all see the social media push for Thursday. Thursday I believe we have Sophie. I believe we have Oliver Tingling, who is also a chameleon who works with Sophie and myself. So super excited about that. And then, I also have an episode this Saturday with a Dan Jones. And Dan, again, another person I meet online that we've been friends for a while, but it'll be our first time. No, I think second or third time connecting on a podcast, but excited about that as well. And so I just want to give a big shout out for everybody that's in the chat. Big shout out to Sophie. Big shout out to my wife, who's in the chat on the Instagram side of things. So kind of go full circle, Alex, with the people in our households giving that support.
And Tanya Gonzalez just popped in. Tanya, thanks for popping in here. She's the best.
Oh yeah.
Looks like you were rocking at TCEA, Tanya. I'm gonna tell you that Adobe booth was rocking. Great job.
Yes, yeah. Big fan of Tanya. And Tanya, I have to apologize. I was in Austin, but I wasn't at TCEA. Everyone was like sending me messages like, Steve, can't wait to see you. I'm like, ooh, I'm not here for that.
Tanya, safe travels to you. And yes, Steve, she needs to be a future guest. I mean, that has to happen.
Yeah. So Tanya, if you're listening, we'll have to make that happen. I'm super keen to have anybody, well, within reason, anybody on the show to chat what's top of mind in education. All right, friends. Thank you. Appreciate all of you that have collaborated with me and have contributed to the show. And as always, keep your hats on, but your minds open. You all have a good night. Appreciate all of you.